Ethan Carter was not like the other kids at Maplewood High School. While most students came from families with nice homes, fancy cars, and plenty of money to spend, Ethan lived a much simpler life. He didn't have the newest sneakers or expensive gadgets, but what he lacked in material things, he made up for with his big heart and sharp mind. At just 14 years old, Ethan had already earned a reputation as one of the brightest students in his grade. His teachers often praised him for his hard work and creativity, and his classmates admired him for his kindness. Ethan's family lived in a small apartment on the edge of town. It wasn't much, but it was home. His mother, Lisa Carter, worked tirelessly to provide for them. She cleaned offices during the day and waited tables at a diner in the evenings. Despite her long hours, Lisa always found time to encourage Ethan and remind him how proud she was of him. Ethan's father had passed away when he was just a child, leaving Lisa to raise him on her own. Though their life wasn't easy, they stuck together and supported each other through every challenge. Every morning, Ethan would wake up early, help his mom pack his lunch, and then walk to school. His uniform was always clean, though it showed signs of wear after years of use. The knees of his pants were slightly faded, and the cuffs of his shirt had been stitched more than once. But Ethan didn't care about that. What mattered to him was doing well in school and making his mom proud. He dreamed of becoming an engineer someday, designing bridges and buildings that would change the world. At Maplewood High, Ethan stood out, not because of his clothes or background, but because of his determination. He stayed late after school to study in the library, joined the science club, and even helped tutor some of his classmates who struggled with math. His best friend Jake often joked that Ethan knew more than their teachers did. "You're going to be running this place one day," Jake would say with a grin. Ethan would laugh it off, but deep down, he hoped Jake was right. However, not everyone at Maplewood High appreciated Ethan's efforts. Principal Roger Fields, a tall man with thinning hair and a stern expression, seemed to have little patience for students who didn't fit his idea of perfection. He believed that the school should reflect a certain image, one of wealth, success, and prestige. To him, students like Ethan were a problem, a reminder that not everyone could afford to live up to those standards. One chilly Tuesday morning, Ethan arrived at school feeling excited. He had spent the weekend working on a science project about renewable energy, and he couldn't wait to present it to his class. As he walked through the hallway, he noticed a few students whispering and pointing at him. At first, he thought nothing of it. Kids sometimes teased him about his clothes or his lunchbox, but Ethan had learned to ignore it. This time, though, something felt different. Later that afternoon, Ethan was called to the principal's office. His stomach tightened as he knocked on the door. "Come in," Principal Fields barked from inside. When Ethan entered, he saw the principal sitting behind his desk, his arms crossed and his face unreadable. "Sit down, Mr. Carter," Fields said, gesturing toward a chair. Ethan obeyed, clutching his backpack tightly. "Is everything okay?" he asked nervously. Fields leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. "I'm afraid not," he replied. "We've received several complaints about your appearance and behavior here at school." Ethan blinked in confusion. "My appearance? What do you mean?" The principal sighed dramatically, as if Ethan's question annoyed him. "Your uniform is clearly outdated and doesn't meet our standards. And your lunches, bringing peanut butter sandwiches every day instead of purchasing meals from the cafeteria, it sends the wrong message." Ethan felt his cheeks grow hot. "But my mom packs my lunch because we can't afford the cafeteria meals," he explained. "And my uniform is clean and neat. I don't understand why this is a problem." Fields shook his head. "It's not just about the uniform or the lunch, Mr. Carter. You're bringing down the school's reputation. We need to maintain a certain standard here, and unfortunately, you're not meeting it." Ethan's heart sank. "Are you saying I'm being expelled?" he asked, his voice trembling. "I'm afraid so," Fields replied coldly. "Effective immediately, you are no longer a student at Maplewood High School." Tears welled up in Ethan's eyes, but he refused to let them fall. "This isn't fair," he whispered. "I work hard here. I get good grades. Why are you doing this?" Fields didn't answer. Instead, He handed Ethan a piece of paper, the official expulsion letter, and dismissed him with a wave of his hand. Ethan left the office in shock, unable to process what had just happened. How could someone punish him for something he couldn't control? For being poor? When Ethan got home that evening, he hesitated before telling his mom the news. Lisa was already exhausted from another long day of work, and he hated to burden her with more worries, but she noticed the sadness in his eyes immediately. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" she asked, setting aside the dishes she had been washing. Ethan handed her the letter, watching as her face turned pale with disbelief. "They can't do this," Lisa said firmly, gripping the paper tightly. "This is wrong. We'll fight this, Ethan, I promise." Though Lisa tried to reassure him, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling of defeat. All his dreams of graduating from Maplewood High and going to college suddenly felt out of reach. That night, as he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Ethan wondered if anyone would ever see past his circumstances and recognize the person he truly was. A boy with big dreams and an even bigger heart. Little did Ethan know, his story was about to take a turn that would change everything, for him, his family, and the entire town of Maplewood. The next morning, Ethan woke up feeling heavy-hearted. He didn't want to get out of bed knowing that he wouldn't be going to school like usual. Instead, he stayed under the covers, staring at the cracks on the ceiling and replaying the events of the previous day in his mind. The words of Principal Fields echoed in his head. "You're bringing down the school's reputation." It hurt more than anything else he'd ever experienced. Lisa, however, wasn't about to let the matter rest. She had spent the night thinking about what to do next. Her son deserved better, and she refused to sit back while someone treated him unfairly. After making breakfast for Ethan, scrambled eggs with toast, his favorite, she sat down across from him at their small kitchen table. "We're not giving up," she said firmly, her voice filled with determination. "This isn't right, and we're going to make sure people know it." Ethan looked at his mom, unsure of how they could possibly fight against such a powerful figure as the principal. "But what can we do?" he asked quietly. He's already made up his mind. Lisa reached across the table and took his hand. "We'll tell our story," she explained. "If enough people hear about what happened, maybe something will change. Maybe someone will help us." That afternoon, Lisa called Amanda Brooks, a young journalist who worked for the local newspaper. Amanda was known for covering stories that others ignored, especially those involving ordinary people facing injustice. When Lisa explained Ethan's situation, Amanda listened intently. By the end of the call, Amanda promised to visit their home the following day to learn more. When Amanda arrived, she brought with her a notebook, a camera, and a genuine curiosity about Ethan's story. Sitting in the Carters' living room, she listened as Lisa recounted every detail, from Ethan's hard work at school to the unfair expulsion. Ethan spoke too, sharing how much he loved learning and how crushed he felt when Principal Fields dismissed him so coldly. Amanda's heart broke for the boy as she watched tears well up in his eyes. "This is wrong," Amanda said softly after hearing their story. "No child should be punished for being poor. I'll write an article about this, and I'll make sure it gets seen by as many people as possible." True to her word, Amanda worked late into the night crafting the piece. The headline read, "Maplewood, High expels teen for being poor." In the article, she highlighted Ethan's achievements, his dedication to his studies, and the unjust treatment he received from the school administration. She included quotes from both Lisa and Ethan, painting a vivid picture of a family struggling to overcome adversity despite their circumstances. The article was published online the very next morning. At first, only a few people clicked on it, a handful of curious neighbors and some of Ethan's classmates. But soon, something remarkable happened. Someone shared the link on social media, attaching the hashtag #StandWithEthan. Within hours, the post went viral. People from all over the country began reading about Ethan's story, commenting on the injustice, and calling for action. By midday, the buzz around Maplewood High School was impossible to ignore. Students gathered in groups, during lunch, discussing the article and expressing disbelief at Principal Fields' actions. Some even admitted they hadn't realized how difficult life must be for students like Ethan. Teachers whispered about the controversy in the staff lounge, wondering if anyone would step forward to challenge the principal's decision. Even parents joined the conversation. Many were outraged, accusing the school of failing its students by prioritizing appearances over fairness. Others defended Ethan, saying he was exactly the kind of student schools should celebrate, not punish. The pressure mounted quickly, and, by the end of the day, news crews had arrived in Maplewood, eager to cover the growing scandal. Meanwhile, Ethan and Lisa watched the chaos unfold from the safety of their apartment. They hadn't expected such a massive response, and at times it felt overwhelming. Messages poured in from strangers offering support, advice, and even financial assistance. One woman sent a care package filled with notebooks and pens, along with a note that read, "Never stop dreaming, Ethan. The world needs more people like you." Another man offered to pay for Ethan's tuition at a private school if necessary. Despite the outpouring of kindness, Ethan couldn't shake the fear that things might never truly change. What if Principal Fields refused to reverse his decision? What if no one cared enough to hold the school accountable? These thoughts swirled in his mind as he scrolled through the endless comments online. But then, something extraordinary happened. A billionaire named Jack Dawson stumbled upon the article while having breakfast in his New York penthouse. Jack had grown up in poverty himself, raised by a single mother who worked multiple jobs just to keep food on the table. He knew firsthand what it was like to feel judged and dismissed because of your background. As he read about Ethan's expulsion, anger burned inside him. "This is unacceptable," Jack muttered to himself, setting down his coffee cup. He immediately called his assistant and instructed her to arrange a trip to Maplewood. "I'm going to meet this boy," he declared, "and I'm going to make sure he knows he's not alone." The next morning, the quiet town of Maplewood was jolted awake by the sound of helicopter blades slicing through the air. Residents rushed outside to see where the noise was coming from, and soon, a sleek black helicopter descended onto the football field of Maplewood High School. The sight was surreal, something no one in the small town had ever witnessed before. Out stepped Jack Dawson, dressed in a crisp suit and wearing a warm smile. Cameras flashed as reporters scrambled to capture the moment. Students gawked from the windows of the school building, unsure whether they were dreaming or awake. Even Principal Fields emerged from his office looking pale and flustered as he tried to understand what was happening. Jack addressed the crowd gathered below, speaking in a calm but commanding voice. "I came here today because I read about a young man named Ethan Carter," he began. "Ethan was expelled from this school simply for being poor. That's not just wrong, it's unacceptable. Every child deserves the chance to succeed, regardless of their circumstances, and I'm here to ensure that Ethan gets that chance." Gasps rippled through the audience. No one had anticipated this kind of intervention, least of all Ethan himself. When Jack asked to meet him privately, Ethan hesitated. He wasn't used to being the center of attention, let alone meeting someone as famous and influential as Jack Dawson. But with Lisa's encouragement, he agreed. In the principal's office, ironically enough, Jack sat down with Ethan and Lisa. For the first time in days, Ethan felt a glimmer of hope. Jack listened intently as Ethan recounted his side of the story, nodding occasionally and offering words of reassurance. When Ethan finished speaking, Jack leaned forward and placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You've done nothing wrong, Ethan," Jack said firmly. "In fact, you've shown incredible strength and resilience. I want to help you continue your education at any institution you choose. Consider it my investment in your future." Tears welled up in Lisa's eyes as she thanked Jack profusely. Ethan, meanwhile, struggled to find the words to express his gratitude. All he could manage was a quiet, heartfelt, "Thank you." As news of Jack's involvement spread, the tide turned decisively against Principal Fields. Parents demanded answers. Teachers voiced their disapproval, and students rallied behind Ethan. The once powerful principal found himself isolated, his authority crumbling under the weight of public scrutiny. It became clear that his days at Maplewood High were numbered. For Ethan and Lisa, the whirlwind of events marked the beginning of a new chapter. Though the road ahead would still have its challenges, They now had allies, people who believed in them and wanted to see them succeed. And for the first time in days, Ethan allowed himself to dream again. The day after Jack Dawson's dramatic arrival at Maplewood High, the entire town buzzed with excitement and anticipation. News of the billionaire's intervention spread like wildfire, reaching every corner of Maplewood. People couldn't stop talking about it. How a man with so much power had taken an interest in Ethan Carter, a boy who seemed destined to be forgotten by the system. For Ethan and Lisa, life felt surreal. Just days ago, they were struggling to figure out how to fight, back against Principal Field's decision. Now they had one of the richest men in the country standing firmly by their side. Jack wasted no time getting to work. After meeting with Ethan and Lisa, he called for an emergency meeting with the school board. He insisted that the issue needed to be addressed immediately, not just for Ethan's sake, but for the sake of all students who might face similar treatment in the future. The school board members, intimidated by Jack's presence and the public pressure mounting outside, reluctantly agreed to convene. The meeting took place in the school auditorium, which was packed with parents, teachers, and even some students. Reporters lined the walls, cameras ready to capture every moment. Principal Fields sat stiffly at the front, his face pale and expressionless. He knew he was in trouble, but there was little he could do to defend himself now. Jack, on the other hand, exuded confidence as he stood before the crowd, his voice calm yet commanding. "I didn't come here to cause trouble," Jack began, addressing the room. "I came here because I believe in fairness. What happened to Ethan Carter is wrong, not just morally, but fundamentally. A school should be a place where every child feels safe, valued, and supported. Instead, Ethan was punished for something completely out of his control, his family's financial situation." He paused, letting his words sink in. Then he turned to Principal Fields. "Mr. Fields, can you explain why you thought it was acceptable to expel a student simply because his uniform wasn't new, or because he brought lunch from home? Was Ethan disruptive in class? Did he fail to meet academic standards?" Principal Fields shifted uncomfortably in his seat. It's about maintaining the school's image," he stammered. "We have high standards here, and we expect our students to uphold them." Jack raised an eyebrow. "High standards, or elitism disguised as standards? Let me tell you something. I grew up poor. My mom worked 3 jobs just to keep us fed. We didn't have fancy clothes or expensive lunches either. But that didn't make me any less deserving of an education. And it certainly didn't give anyone the right to treat me like I didn't belong." The audience erupted into applause, many nodding in agreement. Principal Fields looked down at his hands, unable to respond. His silence spoke volumes. Jack continued, turning his attention to the school board. "This isn't just about Ethan. It's about creating a system that works for everyone, not just those who can afford designer uniforms or cafeteria meals. If this school wants to call itself an institution of learning, then it needs to start acting like one. That means treating every student with respect and dignity regardless of their background." By the end of the meeting, the school board had no choice but to act. Under immense public scrutiny and Jack's relentless advocacy, they issued a formal apology to Ethan and reversed his expulsion. They also promised to implement new policies to prevent discrimination based on socioeconomic status. Principal C. Fields, however, wasn't so lucky. Facing overwhelming criticism and calls for his resignation, he stepped down from his position later that week. For Ethan, the victory was bittersweet. While he was relieved to have his spot back at Maplewood High, he couldn't help but feel uneasy knowing how close he had come to losing everything. Still, he was grateful for Jack's support. The billionaire hadn't just saved him. He had given him a second chance at pursuing his dreams. In the weeks that followed, Jack stayed involved in Ethan's life. He arranged for Ethan to transfer to a prestigious private academy known for its strong STEM program. The tuition was steep, but Jack covered all the costs without hesitation. "Think of it as an investment," he told Ethan with a wink. "One day when you're designing skyscrapers or building bridges, you'll pay it forward." Ethan threw himself into his studies at the new school, determined to make the most of the opportunity. At first, he worried about fitting in among classmates who came from wealthy families and had access to resources he could only dream of. but to his surprise they welcomed him warmly. Many were inspired by his story and admired his resilience. Slowly but surely, Ethan began to feel like he belonged. Back in Maplewood, the community rallied together to ensure that no other student would face the same fate as Ethan. With Jack's encouragement, Lisa helped organize a fundraiser to establish a scholarship fund for underprivileged students. The initiative quickly gained traction, drawing support from local businesses, parents, and even former Maplewood High alumni. The scholarship was named the Ethan Carter Scholarship, a tribute to the boy whose courage sparked change. Lisa also found herself benefiting from Jack's generosity. Recognizing her hard work and dedication, he offered her a job at one of his companies, a stable position with benefits that allowed her to spend more time with Ethan. For the first time in years, Lisa felt hopeful about the future. She no longer had to juggle multiple jobs or worry about making ends meet. Instead, she could focus on being there for her son. As the months passed, Ethan and Jack grew closer. Though their lives were worlds apart, they shared a bond rooted in mutual respect and understanding. Jack often invited Ethan to visit him at his office, where he introduced him to engineers, architects, and entrepreneurs. These interactions opened Ethan's eyes to the possibilities ahead of him. He began dreaming bigger than ever before, imagining a future where he could use his skills to make a difference in the world. One evening, as they sat together in Jack's study, Ethan finally mustered the courage to ask the question that had been weighing on his mind. "Why did you help me?" he asked softly. "You didn't have to, I'm just me." Jack smiled, leaning back in his chair. "Because I see myself in you," he replied. "When I was your age, I faced the same kind of judgment and unfairness. I know what it's like to feel invisible, like the world doesn't care about people like us. But here's the thing, Ethan, you matter, your dreams matter. And if I can help even one person avoid the struggles I went through, then it's worth it." Ethan nodded, tears welling up in his eyes. He realized then that Jack wasn't just helping him. He was showing him the importance of lifting others up. It was a lesson Ethan vowed to carry with him for the rest of his life. Meanwhile, life in Maplewood began to change. The school district implemented stricter anti-discrimination policies, ensuring that no student would be judged based on their appearance or financial situation. Teachers received training on fostering inclusivity, and students started initiatives to support peers in need. The ripple effect of Ethan's story reached far beyond what anyone could have imagined. Though Ethan missed his old friends and teachers, he knew he was exactly where he needed to be. At his new school, he thrived academically and socially, earning top marks and forming meaningful connections. His science projects continued to impress, and he even won first place in a regional engineering competition. Each achievement brought him one step closer to realizing his dream of becoming an engineer. As the school year drew to a close, Ethan reflected on how much had changed since that fateful day when Principal Fields handed him the expulsion letter. Back then, he had felt powerless, like the world was conspiring against him. Now he saw that sometimes, the darkest moments lead to the brightest opportunities. All it takes is one person willing to stand up and say, "Enough is enough." And for Ethan Carter, that person had been Jack Dawson, a billionaire who arrived in a helicopter, not just to save the day, but to remind everyone that kindness and justice still have the power to change lives. Ethan's life had transformed in ways he never imagined. At his new school, he was thriving. The teachers were supportive, the resources were abundant, and the students were driven but kind. For the first time, Ethan felt like he truly belonged somewhere. He threw himself into his studies, spending hours in the library researching engineering projects and collaborating with classmates on innovative ideas. His passion for building and designing grew stronger every day, fueled by the encouragement of those around him. Jack Dawson remained a constant presence in Ethan's life. Though Jack was busy running his global business empire, he always made time for Ethan. Whether it was inviting him to visit his office, introducing him to industry leaders, or simply checking in to see how he was doing, Jack went out of his way to mentor the young boy. To Ethan, Jack wasn't just a benefactor, He was a role model, a living example of what could be achieved through hard work, determination, and resilience. One Saturday afternoon, Jack took Ethan to a construction site where one of his companies was building a state-of-the-art bridge. As they walked along the scaffolding, Jack explained the design process, pointing out how engineers balanced creativity with practicality. "This bridge will connect two cities," Jack said proudly. "It'll make travel easier, create jobs, and improve lives. That's the power of engineering, Ethan. You don't just build structures, you build opportunities." Ethan listened intently, his eyes wide with wonder. He imagined himself standing in Jack's shoes someday, overseeing projects that would change the world. But more than anything, he wanted to use his skills to help people like his mom, people who worked tirelessly but often went unnoticed. "I want to build things that matter," Ethan said thoughtfully. "Things that make life better for everyone, not just the rich." Jack smiled, patting Ethan on the shoulder. "That's exactly the mindset you need. Never lose sight of why you started this journey. Remember where you came from, and let it guide you." Back in Maplewood, Lisa Carter was also finding her footing. Her new job at one of Jack's companies gave her stability she hadn't known in years. She no longer had to work late nights or worry about how to pay the bills. Instead, she could focus on being present for Ethan and giving back to the community. Inspired by the success of the Ethan Carter Scholarship, Lisa volunteered her free time to mentor other single mothers in the area, sharing tips on budgeting, career development, and self-care. The scholarship fund itself continued to grow, thanks to donations from across the country. People touched by Ethan's story sent money, supplies, and letters of encouragement. Local businesses offered internships and workshops for scholarship recipients, ensuring they had the tools they needed to succeed. The initiative became a beacon of hope in Maplewood, proving that even small towns could spark big changes. Despite all the progress, Ethan still faced challenges. Adjusting to his new school wasn't easy. Many of his classmates came from privileged backgrounds and had access to resources he couldn't fathom. Some of them talked about vacations in Europe, private tutors, and summer homes as if these were ordinary parts of life. At times, Ethan felt out of place, like he didn't belong in their world. But whenever doubt crept in, he reminded himself of why he was there: to build a better future for himself and his family. His best friend, Jake, kept in touch regularly, sending texts and calling on weekends. Their conversations were a lifeline for Ethan, grounding him in the reality of who he was. "You're still the same Ethan," Jake told him during one call. "Just because you're at a fancy school doesn't mean you've changed. Don't forget us little people, okay?" Ethan laughed, grateful for Jake's humor. "Never," he replied. "You guys are my real friends. Nothing can change that." As the months passed, Ethan began to find his voice. He joined the debate team, where he learned to articulate his thoughts clearly and confidently. He spoke passionately about issues like education reform, income inequality, and environmental sustainability. His speeches earned praise from teachers and peers alike, further boosting his confidence. Slowly but surely, Ethan realized that his background wasn't something to be ashamed of. It was a source of strength. One evening, Jack invited Ethan to attend a charity gala hosted by his foundation. The event brought together some of the most influential people in the country, all united by a desire to give back. When Jack introduced Ethan to the crowd, explaining how his story inspired the creation of the scholarship fund, the room erupted in applause. Ethan stood awkwardly at first, unsure of what to say. But then he looked out at the sea of faces and saw something unexpected. Not pity, but admiration. "I'm here tonight because someone believed in me when I didn't believe in myself," Ethan began, his voice trembling slightly. "Mr. Dawson didn't just help me. He showed me that kindness has the power to change lives. And now I want to do the same for others. No kid should ever feel like they don't belong because of where they come from, or how much money their family has. We're all capable of greatness if we're given the chance." By the time he finished speaking, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. People lined up to shake his hand, offering words of encouragement and pledging additional support for the scholarship fund. Ethan left the gala feeling overwhelmed but hopeful. For the first time, he understood the impact his story could have, not just on his own life, but on countless others. Meanwhile, in Maplewood, the effects of Ethan's expulsion continued to ripple through the community. The school district implemented sweeping reforms, including mandatory diversity training for staff and stricter guidelines to prevent discrimination. Students formed clubs focused on inclusion and advocacy, ensuring that voices like Ethan's would always be heard. The town itself seemed to come alive with renewed energy, as residents worked together to create a brighter future for the next generation. Principal Fields' resignation marked the beginning of a new era at Maplewood High. A new principal, Ms. Rachel Monroe, took over the position. Unlike her predecessor, she prioritized empathy and fairness above all else. Under her leadership, the school became a place where every student felt valued and supported. She even invited Ethan to speak at an assembly, where he shared his journey and encouraged others to persevere despite adversity. For Lisa, seeing her son stand tall in front of his old classmates was a moment of immense pride. She watched from the audience, tears streaming down her face as Ethan delivered a heartfelt speech about resilience and gratitude. "Life isn't always fair," he told the students. "But that doesn't mean you should give up. Keep fighting for your dreams, and don't let anyone tell you that you're not good enough." Afterward, several parents approached Lisa to thank her for raising such an inspiring son. "Ethan gives us hope," one mother said. "If he can overcome everything he's been through, then maybe our kids can too." Lisa nodded, humbled by their words. She knew Ethan's journey wasn't just about personal success. It was about showing others that they too could rise above their circumstances. As the school year drew to a close, Ethan prepared for summer break with a mix of excitement and reflection. He had accomplished so much in such a short time, yet he knew there was still a long road ahead. Engineering school was just a few years away, and he wanted to make sure he was ready. With Jack's guidance and his own determination, he was confident he could achieve his goals. On the last day of school, Ethan received a letter in the mail. It was from Harvard University, congratulating him on being selected for a prestigious pre-college program focused on STEM fields. The program offered workshops, lab experiences, and mentorship from top professors. Ethan stared at the envelope in disbelief, reading the words over and over again. This was another step closer to his dream. When he showed the letter to Lisa, she hugged him tightly, tears streaming down her face. "You did it, sweetheart," she whispered. "All your hard work is paying off." That night, Ethan sat on the couch beside Jack, who had stopped by to congratulate him. "Harvard, huh?" Jack said with a grin. "Looks like I'll have to start calling you Professor Carter soon." Ethan laughed, shaking his head. "Not yet, but I'll get there. Thanks to you, I know I can." Jack leaned back, smiling warmly. "Remember, Ethan, this isn't just about you. Someday you'll inspire someone else the way you've inspired me. That's how change happens, one person at a time." Ethan nodded, feeling a deep sense of purpose. He had come a long way from the boy who once feared he didn't belong. Now, he knew he had a place in the world and a responsibility to make it better. The summer before Ethan's senior year was unlike any other. Thanks to the pre-college program at Harvard, he spent 6 weeks immersed in a world of innovation and discovery. The campus buzzed with energy as students from all over the globe gathered to learn from some of the brightest minds in science and engineering. For Ethan, it was both exhilarating and humbling. He soaked up every lecture, every lab experiment, and every late-night discussion with his peers. Each day brought new challenges and opportunities, pushing him to think bigger and dream bolder. One of the highlights of the program was working on a team project to design a sustainable housing prototype for low-income communities. Ethan poured his heart into the assignment, drawing inspiration from his own experiences growing up in Maplewood. He thought about families like his, hard-working but struggling, and how small improvements could make a huge difference in their lives. When the team presented their final design, a modular home powered by solar panels and built with affordable, eco-friendly materials, the professors were impressed. "This isn't just good engineering," one of them said. "It's compassionate problem-solving." Ethan returned home with a renewed sense of purpose. He knew exactly what he wanted to do after graduation: pursue a degree in civil engineering so he could design infrastructure that served everyone, not just the wealthy. But more than that, he wanted to inspire others to see the value in helping those less fortunate. Jack Dawson had shown him the power of kindness and generosity, and now Ethan was determined to pay it forward. Back in Maplewood, life continued to improve for Lisa Carter. Her job at Jack's company gave her stability she hadn't known in years, allowing her to focus on raising Ethan without the constant stress of financial insecurity. She also found joy in mentoring other single mothers through the community center. Every week, she met with a group of women who shared stories, advice, and laughter over coffee. Together, they supported each other through life's ups and downs, creating a network of strength and resilience. Lisa often marveled at how far they'd come since Ethan's expulsion. What had started as a nightmare had turned into an opportunity for growth, not just for Ethan, but for the entire town. The Ethan Carter Scholarship Fund had grown exponentially, providing scholarships to dozens of students across the region. Many of the recipients were the first in their families to attend college, breaking cycles of poverty and opening doors to brighter futures. Lisa took pride in knowing that her son's name was synonymous with hope and perseverance. At school, Ethan balanced his studies with leadership roles in various clubs. He became president of the debate team, led a robotics club, and even started a mentorship program pairing upperclassmen with underclassmen. His favorite part of the program was seeing shy freshmen blossom into confident students eager to take on the world. One boy, Tyler, reminded Ethan of himself, a quiet kid with big dreams but little confidence. By the end of the year, Tyler was excelling in math and science, thanks in large part to Ethan's encouragement. As graduation approached, excitement filled the air. Ethan worked tirelessly on his valedictorian speech, wanting to leave a lasting impression on his classmates. He reflected on everything he'd been through, the struggles, the victories, and the lessons learned along the way. Most importantly, he wanted to remind his peers that success wasn't measured by wealth or status, but by the impact they had on others. On the morning of graduation, Ethan woke up early, unable to sleep. He stood by the window, watching the sun rise over Maplewood. It felt surreal to think about how much had changed since that fateful day when Principal Fields handed him the expulsion letter. Back then, he had felt powerless, like the world was against him. Now he stood ready to step into a future full of possibilities. The ceremony took place on the football field where Jack's helicopter had landed years earlier. Rows of chairs stretched across the grass filled with proud parents, teachers, and friends. As Ethan walked onto the stage to deliver his speech, the crowd erupted in applause. He smiled nervously, adjusting the microphone before beginning. When I was younger, I used to think success meant having nice things: a fancy car, a big house, designer clothes. Ethan started, his voice steady despite the nerves fluttering in his chest. But life has taught me that true success is about something deeper. It's about using your gifts to make the world a better place. It's about lifting others up instead of tearing them down. He paused, scanning the faces in the audience. Some people nodded, while others wiped away tears. I wouldn't be standing here today if it weren't for the love and support of my mom, the courage of strangers who believed in me, and the kindness of someone who refused to let injustice go unchallenged. Because of them, I learned that no matter where you come from or what you've been through, you have the power to change your story. Ethan went on to thank Jack Dawson, who sat in the front row wearing a proud smile. Mr. Dawson didn't just give me a second chance. He showed me the importance of giving others a second chance too. That's why I want to dedicate my life to building bridges, not just physical ones, but bridges of opportunity and understanding. If we can help even one person overcome the odds, then we've succeeded. By the time Ethan finished speaking, the entire audience was on its feet, cheering and clapping. Lisa hugged him tightly backstage, tears streaming down her face. "You did it, sweetheart," she whispered. "You made us so proud." That evening, the Carters hosted a small celebration at their apartment. Friends, family, and neighbors gathered to congratulate Ethan and celebrate his achievements. Jack arrived later, carrying a gift wrapped in silver paper. "For the future engineer," he said with a grin, handing it to Ethan. Inside the box was a sleek laptop engraved with the words, "Dream big, build bigger." Ethan stared at it, overwhelmed with gratitude. "Thank you," he said softly. "I don't know what I did to deserve all this." Jack placed a hand on his shoulder. "You earned it, Ethan. And remember, this is just the beginning. The best is yet to come." As the night wore on, Ethan found himself reflecting on how far he'd come. From being labeled too poor to becoming a symbol of resilience and hope, his journey had been anything but ordinary. Yet he knew the real work lay ahead. College would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and new ways to make a difference. He couldn't wait to get started. In the weeks that followed, Ethan prepared for the next chapter of his life. He packed his bags, said goodbye to his friends, and promised Jake he'd visit during breaks. On the day he left for college, Lisa hugged him tightly, her eyes brimming with tears. "I'm going to miss you so much," she said. "But I know you're going to do amazing things." "I'll call every week," Ethan promised. "And I'll come back for holidays. This isn't goodbye. It's just the start of something new." As the train pulled away from the station, Ethan looked out the window at the familiar streets of Maplewood fading into the distance. He thought about all the people who had helped him along the way. His mom, Jack, his teachers, and even the strangers who had donated to the scholarship fund. Their kindness had changed his life, and now it was his turn to carry the torch. When Ethan arrived at college, he wasted no time getting involved. He joined clubs, attended workshops, and volunteered at local nonprofits. His passion for engineering grew stronger with each passing day, fueled by the knowledge that he could use his skills to create a better world. During winter break, he returned to Maplewood to speak at the annual scholarship fundraiser, sharing his college experiences and encouraging the next generation of recipients to chase their dreams. The Ethan Carter Scholarship Fund continued to thrive, expanding its reach to include vocational training programs and mentorship initiatives. Local businesses partnered with the foundation, offering internships and apprenticeships to students eager to learn trades like carpentry, plumbing, and electrical work. The ripple effect of Ethan's story reached farther than anyone could have. Imagine transforming Maplewood into a hub of opportunity and hope. Years later, as Ethan stood on the stage at his college graduation, he reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From the boy who once feared he didn't belong to the man ready to tackle the world's toughest challenges, Ethan had proven that adversity could be a stepping stone to greatness. As he accepted his diploma, he silently thanked everyone who had believed in him, because without them, none of this would have been possible. And somewhere in the audience, Jack Dawson watched with a proud smile, knowing he had played a small part in shaping the future of a remarkable young man. Ethan Carter's college years flew by in a whirlwind of lectures, late-night study sessions, and hands-on projects that pushed him to the limits of his creativity. He thrived in his engineering program, earning top marks and impressing professors with his innovative ideas. But more than anything, Ethan cherished the opportunities he had to give back. During summer breaks, he returned to Maplewood to lead workshops for underprivileged students, teaching them about engineering and encouraging them to pursue careers in STEM fields. His message was simple yet powerful. You don't need fancy tools or expensive resources to solve problems. All you need is curiosity, determination, and a willingness to try. One summer, Ethan partnered with Jack Dawson's foundation to launch a mobile science lab that traveled to rural schools across the country. The bus was equipped with microscopes, robotics kits, and 3D printers, bringing cutting-edge technology to kids who might never have seen it otherwise. Ethan spent weeks traveling with the lab, sharing his story and inspiring students to dream big. When he spoke, they listened. Not because he was famous, but because he was one of them. He understood their struggles and showed them that success was possible, even when the odds seemed stacked against them. By the time Ethan graduated from college, he had already made a name for himself in the engineering world. His senior project, a sustainable housing design inspired by his work at Harvard, caught the attention of several major companies. Offers poured in, but Ethan turned them all down. Instead, he chose to join a nonprofit organization focused on building affordable homes for low-income families. It wasn't the most lucrative path, but it was the one that aligned with his values. "I didn't get here alone," he often said. "Someone helped me when I needed it most, and now it's my turn to do the same." Ethan threw himself into his new role, working long hours to bring his designs to life. He collaborated with architects, engineers, and community leaders to create homes that were not only functional, but also environmentally friendly and cost-effective. Each completed project filled him with pride, knowing that he was making a tangible difference in people's lives. One family in particular stood out, a single mother named Maria and her 2 young children. When Ethan handed her the keys to their new home, tears streamed down her face. "Thank you," she whispered, hugging him tightly. "You've given us a fresh start." Back in Maplewood, Lisa Carter continued to inspire those around her. Her mentoring program for single mothers had grown into a thriving community initiative, offering everything from financial literacy classes to wellness workshops. She became a beloved figure in town, known for her warmth and wisdom. Though she still missed Ethan dearly, she took comfort in knowing that he was fulfilling his dreams while staying true to his roots. Jack Dawson remained a steadfast presence in Ethan's life, offering guidance and support whenever needed. He often joked that Ethan was his greatest investment, but deep down he knew the young man had become something far more meaningful, a friend. Together, they expanded the scholarship fund, ensuring that it reached even more students in need. They also launched a mentorship program connecting high schoolers with professionals in various fields, giving them a glimpse of what their futures could look like. As the years passed, Ethan's reputation grew. He was invited to speak at conferences, universities, and community events, where he shared his journey and urged others to use their talents for good. His speeches always ended with the same call to action: don't wait for someone else to fix the problems you see. Start where you are, with what you have. Even the smallest effort can spark change. One day, Ethan received an email from a former classmate named Tyler, the shy freshman he had mentored during high school. Attached was a photo of Tyler standing in front of a sleek skyscraper, wearing a hard hat and holding blueprints. In the note, Tyler wrote, "I wouldn't be here if it weren't for you. You believed in me when no one else did, and now I'm living proof that anything is possible. Thank you for showing me the way." Reading those words brought tears to Ethan's eyes. He realized then that his impact extended far beyond the projects he built or the awards he received. It was in the lives he touched, the students he inspired, the families he helped, and the ripple effect of kindness he set in motion. Years later, Ethan found himself back in Maplewood, standing before a crowd gathered at the grand opening of a new community center. Named the Carter Innovation Hub, it was a state-of-the-art facility designed to provide free tutoring, job training, and creative workshops to residents of all ages. Funded entirely by donations from the Scholarship Fund and Jack's Foundation, the hub was a testament to what could be achieved when people came together for a common cause. As Ethan addressed the audience, he thought about how far he'd come since that fateful day when Principal Fields tried to expel him. Back then, he had felt powerless, like the world was conspiring against him. Now he stood as a beacon of hope, proving that resilience and compassion could overcome even the greatest obstacles. "This building isn't just a place for learning," he said, his voice steady and sincere. "It's a reminder that everyone deserves a chance to succeed, regardless of where they come from. And it's a promise that we'll keep fighting for a future where no one is left behind." The crowd erupted in applause, many wiping away tears. Among them were Lisa, Jack, Jake, and countless others, whose lives Ethan had touched along the way. They cheered not just for the boy who had once been labeled too poor, but for the man who refused to let adversity define him. That evening, as Ethan walked through the halls of the Innovation Hub, he paused to watch a group of children experimenting with a robotics kit. Their laughter echoed through the room, filling him with a sense of fulfillment he had never known before. He thought about his own childhood, the struggles, the sacrifices, and the moments of doubt. and realized that every step of his journey had led him here. Later that night, Ethan sat on the porch of his mom's house, staring up at the stars. Lisa joined him, handing him a cup of hot cocoa. "You've done amazing things, sweetheart," she said softly. "Your dad would be so proud of you." Ethan smiled, feeling a lump rise in his throat. "Thanks, Mom, but I couldn't have done any of it without you or Jack or Jake or everyone else who believed in me. This isn't just my story. It's ours." Lisa nodded, squeezing his hand. "And it's not over yet. There's still so much more you can do." Ethan looked out at the quiet streets of Maplewood, lit softly by the glow of streetlights. Somewhere out there, another child was dreaming of a better future, unsure of whether it was within reach. Ethan knew exactly how that felt, and he was determined to make sure no one ever felt that way again. As he sipped his cocoa, Ethan allowed himself a moment of peace. The road ahead would still have its challenges, but he was ready. He had faced adversity before and emerged stronger because of it. And now, armed with knowledge, experience, and an unshakable belief in the power of kindness, he was prepared to tackle whatever came next. Somewhere above them, Jack watched proudly, knowing that sometimes all it takes is one person willing to step up and make a difference. For Ethan Carter, that difference had started with a second chance, and it had grown into a legacy of hope, resilience, and boundless possibility.